Hello, everyone. Welcome to watching another episode of Holistic View of Anxiety is the topic for this show. This is an eighth show that we're recording, and the account is actually um uh, anxiety. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for watching. Today I have invited Leslie to talk with us about the anxiety. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, happy to be here.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about yourself first.
I am Leslie Porter. I live in Los Angeles, California, but all of my work is actually online virtual. And I've
Mhm.
been in the whole health and wellness holistic services for over 26 years. And I have a vast background in things like various styles of yoga, meditation, breath work, somatic healing, Pilates. So my background's pretty vast, and by Ayurveda.
Mhm. And I like that your slogan is holistic
Yeah.
lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
Holistic
one
lifestyle.
of my programs is called the Holistic Lifestyle Method.
Okay, holistic lifestyle method. So, what does that mean?
It means, I don't specialize, when people come to me, I always offer free consults and when to see if I can help them, right? To see
Mm-hmm.
if I can help them. I do not work with mental illnesses, so I would usually refer out for that. But if
Mm-hmm.
someone really just has this sort of generalized anxiety or generalized stress or sleep issues or something, I help them create more of a holistic lifestyle, and I look at their what they're eating. I look at what their lifestyle is currently, and then make very simple, subtle shifts so that they get more into balance and feel better in their skin and not feel spread too thin. And so I'm looking at ways because there are different foods that actually can cause more anxiety and sleep issues and
Mm-hmm.
energy issues. So I'm looking at how do we shift those so that the person comes more into balance
Mm-hmm.
and getting them off of medication, right? Like I think sometimes meds are important, especially with that mental illness
Mm-hmm.
that I don't work with. Um, but with people who really don't need them, there are people who really don't need to be on anti-anxiety pills or sleeping pills.
Mm-hmm.
Melatonin actually was just recently in the news and can cause dementia down the line if taken too much. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems healthy and holistic, right? Like you hear melatonin, oh, that helps me so much, but there are actually, if you Google it, CNN had tons of articles in the last 2 years about how it can cause cognitive problems. So my work helps people get off of these meds if they don't need them. So we work very holistically, meaning what can let's use what you have in your home. Let's, what can we do to shift the breath a little bit, and I can self-tailor the meditations and the breath work and the foods to make sure that they're in balance and not feeling so,
Mm-hmm.
anxious and stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense. And what did you have your own experience with anxiety?
Oh yeah. And I was an insomniac when I was younger. So I would say in my early, teens, early 20s, in the beginning of my own practice, I mean, I think a lot of people get into some sort of health and wellness because of their own stuff, right? And they want to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened for me. I definitely had a lot of issues going on, a lot of family problems. I didn't feel good in my body. I felt really stressed out all the time. I was having anxiety attacks. So and I was an insomniac for a good 3 months. So I just stopped sleeping like completely. I felt like my radar was on. I remember I was in my I'm 46 now, and I was in my early 20s and I was just like awake. I was not going to sleep.
Wow. Mhm.
And so all the work that I did on myself, and I stepped testing myself, and then I was testing clients on it too, and it worked for me and it worked for them. I never needed sleeping pills because I
Mhm.
started doing the work that I do now with people. I changed my diet, I changed my, whatever. And I remember actually my anxiety and my stress and my sleep issues were so bad. I got sent to the ER when I was like
Oh,
18
wow.
years old. And the doctor's
Okay.
like, "You're so stressed, just drink chamomile tea." And I'm like, "Really? Like that's all you're going to give me?" That's it. And so when I hear things like that, it makes me so grateful that I have the tools I have to help people so they get more information. It's really educating of this is
Mm-hmm.
what you can do next. So you don't have to do some of those things have pretty bad side effects. So it's really important to educate yourself. So I educated
Mm-hmm.
myself and then I got better. I have not had sleeping
Mm-hmm.
problems since I was probably 20.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's
Mhm.
kind of like the average age when anxiety really takes off? I know little kids even have anxiety now, but like with your most of your clients, what's the average age when they think that it really they start noticing it?
I would say there's not necessarily an average age.
Okay.
I mean, I think I noticed my anxiety when I was like 5
Oh,
or
okay. So
6.
really in
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely had more of an anxious, you know, I was so confused, I think, with like how to get myself to function and what that meant and I was always the black sheep of my family. I never really like
Mm-hmm.
fit in with them. So
Mm-hmm.
it really was hard for me to find my way. But with my client, and then I finally did, right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you get over your hurdle and you find your way. But I would say, hold on, give me a moment. I would say that it depends. Like, there's usually some sort of trigger. Like, let's say that because I'm a somatic practitioner, so I've worked a lot with various traumas,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked. I don't want to trigger anyone, but I'm gonna talk about something kind of serious right now. Like, this is a serious topic. So,
Mm-hmm.
there was a client I had who was literally put in a cult when she was 5 years old, and she was sexually abused for
Okay.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I used to work a
Mm-hmm.
lot with sexual abuse in my practice. And
Okay.
she went into freeze, right? She went into a dissociation. So she was very shut down from her body. I think she had moments of anxiety, but I think when she got into her first like adult relationship, then the anxiety started to come forward because she probably
Mm-hmm.
felt safer with this person. And then, the freeze starts to not be frozen anymore. And then you start to realize what actually happened. So that trigger moment, though, is different for each person. So
Mm-hmm.
they can have these moments where even in public, they hear a song, they see some
Mm-hmm.
sort of outfit. They could be 50 years old. I mean, 60 years, you just don't know, right? It's like the
Mm-hmm.
moment where you start to thaw, because I actually, unfortunately, we're in a culture that is actually, they're in freeze. A lot of people are
Yeah.
in freeze or dissociation. So
Mm-hmm.
we're a society that doesn't talk about anxiety. So go you for having
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful
Podcast.
podcast, because
Mm-hmm.
most people talk about being happy and positive all the time. Like, your mindset affects your success, right?
Mm-hmm.
This sort of spiritually bypassing let's not be real about the world thing. Just be happy because that's going to make you okay. But that's not actually real. And so I think when people are hurt, they're not sure where to go unless they are so lucky to have a safe space to process it in, which is, in my opinion, very rare. I very rarely see someone who's had that safe space to heal, because I think that would make
Mm-hmm.
it go quicker, right? Like, if everyone had that, can you imagine? Everyone has some safe space to just go through their process of anxiety. I think the world would actually be a more peaceful place.
Yeah. And like knowledge and also some kind of support as a guidance or guiding person, coach. That's I believe the same way with people mistaking the happiness for like the faking happiness. Like you
Yeah.
can't just get over anxiety by faking that you're happy. No, you
Right.
have to process all those other feelings. And that's what I'm teaching about happiness as well. We have those other feelings for a reason,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We just want to get to that point where we can most of the time be happy, but it's not, you can't be happy when you're having anxiety or something. You have to process that feeling and then go back to happiness state. But if you just think of like just think happy thoughts. I don't believe in that. Just thinking happy thoughts is not going to change anything. You have to create those moments when you actually do something that make you feel happy.
Yeah. And I think one thing that people sometimes miss with the anxiety piece is that Your nervous system only has the capacity to handle so much at once. So actually,
Mm-hmm.
you will never be able to just go into the anxiety super quickly and get out of it. It's one of those things where it's like gentle, kind, tender doses and moving through it and learning to navigate it. And okay, this is, how do I, and it's really this honoring of our humanity, right? Like there's these moments where we get to honor these pieces of our humanity. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, sometimes it really sucks. Like it does. Like
Yeah,
it just
it
does.
does.
We all have pieces of it. We all take turns, but it's also gorgeous, right? Like this sense of, okay, this hurts. I'm scared. How do I meet this with tenderness now? Like what do I need? Because my guess is it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be sugar. You're probably not going to need that chocolate right now, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to need that bread. Or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's nice, right? But are you
Yes.
using it as medicine? Like what are you doing? Like what
Mm-hmm.
are you around toxic people? Are you around, like it's really important, I think, to look at, and I think that's holistic too, right? Like looking at every level of your life and recognizing this works, this doesn't for me, right? Like who are you? What do
Mm-hmm.
you need
Mm-hmm.
versus what you should need? Those are two different things. So I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes when we get into these spaces and we go, oh my God, something doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel right. Instead of ignoring it and like overworking ourselves or something, right? Because people do that too. Instead of eating sugar, they overwork to like, oh, okay, I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
feel this. I'm going to overwork now. To step back a second and go, oh, body, I hear you. You are, whew, this is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to
Mm-hmm.
abandon this one. I'm not going to leave
Mm-hmm.
myself. I'm going to stay present with this. I might need help. What do I need now?
Mm-hmm.
What needs to happen? So I think that that's, it's important to hire people like you and I to go, hey, like, how do we navigate this? Like, what do we do now to move through this weird life
Mm-hmm.
thing?
Mm-hmm. And that's why because I teach usually like happiness, but that's why I wanted to create this honesty about anxiety, is because people who have anxiety, they're not even in a point where they think about happiness. So that's why I wanted to give an outlet for the anxiety people who with anxiety to face their situation, you
Right,
know,
right.
face what's going on.
It's
But
so
this
important.
question as well, anxiety usually has a trigger, right?
Oh, yeah,
So how
it
do
does for
people,
sure. Unless you
how
have
do,
such a sensitive nervous system, right? I would say there's a trigger, but unless you have, let's say you have birth trauma, right? Let's say you
Mhm,
actually have birth trauma and that it's there's a trigger, but sometimes let's say your mom, when you were pregnant, when she was pregnant with
mhm,
you, literally had crazy amounts of anxiety already.
mhm,
And then, and or you have birth trauma, you were unfortunately, some of your ancestry kind of affects these things. So even though it might be a trigger, you also might be holding different people's stuff. And then so part of our work is to unearth which is ours and which is not.
mhm. And how would you do it when you're having anxiety? How would the people with anxiety, how they will understand how to do that?
I think it depends per person. Each person is going to have a different trigger. I
Mhm,
don't think there's a one
mhm,
size fits all health healing thing. I think you have to
mhm,
listen to the person and really hear them because I mean, there's a fad right now. I don't know if it's actually going on as much right now, but for a while there, it was like, get your weighted blanket. Your weighted blanket's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help
okay.
you with
Mhm,
your anxiety, right? But
mhm,
some of my clients came to me and they, especially if they'd been assaulted, they're like, the last thing I want is some heavy thing on me.
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it's the worst thing for them. So you have
Mhm,
to, there's no one size fits all thing, but I think it's important to make sure you're safe. I think that's number one. Are you in a safe place?
Mm-hmm.
Are you in a safe place to feel your anxiety? Are you with an unsafe? I mean, obviously, you do not want to share your anxiety with an unsafe person. Do not share. I mean, that's probably the
Mm-hmm.
worst thing you could do for yourself is share. I think sometimes we want to be open and share and connect, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
let's be open, let's talk about it. And some people have no capacity for that. They just do not have it. So they're going to tell you something like
Yeah.
someone has died, right? I'm going to give an example. Someone dies. Some people are
Mm-hmm.
absolutely horrible when someone dies. Like they say the worst freaking things. And I'm like, really? You don't have to. And so my client's father died, and she said everyone around her kept telling her it was a good opportunity to XYZ. And she was just like, God, just fuck off. Like, leave me alone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
just
weird.
I just need to be in grief. Like, I don't need you to fucking
Mm-hmm.
tell me that it's like a good opportunity or he's in a better place or what the ever. Like I miss him. It sucks. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and to just be able to make sure again, but she felt safe to tell me that. Right. She
Mm-hmm.
waited till she unfortunately the grief was shared with people she didn't feel safe with. So she didn't feel safe to tell
Okay.
them. Right? It wasn't a safe person to talk
Mm-hmm.
to about her experience. It wasn't a safe
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure you're safe. And that might mean you're alone for a little bit, and that's okay too. Sometimes we need to be by
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Mm-hmm. What I see, one thing as well, people tend to have anxiety because they look at somebody else doing something and they create anxiety by thinking like, oh, I should be doing what they are doing. Like we talked a little bit about it, instead of
Like, can you give me an
understanding that
example of what you mean? What are you thinking? Like what? Like the weighted
when
blanket?
even like when people look at the Instagram photos, you know,
What?
and they think,
That's horrible.
but as silly it is for us when
Yeah.
we understand with people with anxiety that they look at those photos and
Yeah.
they create even more anxiety in them instead of
Yes,
just
it's true.
trying to get away and not look at it. And because maybe that might be true as well. What do you think? Do people with anxiety, they already used to it, that feeling, and do they create more of that feeling because that's their comfort zone?
Your question actually cut out. Can you ask that one more time, please?
Okay. If people with anxiety, do they look for more anxiety when they used to it, that feeling? So do they kind of like looking for more things to create that feeling because that's their comfort zone?
It's a great question. That is a great question. I would say it depends. But I was thinking of the dynamic that happens between an anxious attachment and an avoidant attachment, where
Okay.
the anxious attachment is definitely attracted to the avoidant attachment, and the and it ends up being sort of like Pac-Man, like this sort of this back
Okay.
and forward chasing. And the feeling of anxiety in relationships can look like chemistry, but it's not
Okay.
chemistry. It's
Okay.
anxiety. You're actually recognizing from the anxiety that the person is an avoidant. It looks like chemistry. You guys might have great chemistry physically,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but the person is literally bringing out your anxiety. It feels like butterflies, but it's anxiety. And I
Oh.
think sometimes because it looks like chemistry, it looks like attraction and not anxiety, I think that the anxious person will go for that without recognizing this could be, wait, this anxiety is actually a messenger telling me to stay away from this person. That's what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
really anxiety saying, stop. This is not safe. Um, but it looks like, so it doesn't actually, it may not look like, it may not seem like
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. It may just seem like, oh, I have butterflies for this person. I get like all tingly and I get all shaky and whatever. No, no, your anxiety in general is a messenger. It's telling you, especially if you're a highly sensitive person, empath, it is
Mm-hmm.
telling you something, and it's probably telling you the person's not right for you. And as much as
Mm-hmm.
it might seem sexy, it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's going to hurt you in the end. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make you know what I mean?
Yeah, it made sense. Mm-hmm.
But it
So,
depends because with some people with anxiety, they literally just like lock themselves in the house. They don't even want to leave. So I don't think some people want that
Mm-hmm.
feeling at all.
Mm-hmm. And that's severe anxiety.
It's more of
That's
a
when it
mental
gets
illness,
really severe.
actually. Yeah, that's turned into a very
Okay. Yeah.
serious post-traumatic stress disorder issue, right? Like you've literally become almost claustrophobic to life.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So, what are let's talk about holistic view on the um. You start bringing up nutrition in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, because
So,
yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah, how can the anxious people start looking at what they're eating? What should they
Again,
look
so
at first?
when I work with people, it's very self-tailored. So it's hard for me to give like an overall, especially like one thing to consider is if someone who if someone is like let's say 20 years old, I'm going to give two different ages and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
generalize right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is 20 years old or 30 and they're freezing all the time, they are not going to eat the same foods and have the same triggers as a 40, 50-year-old perimenopausal or menopausal woman who's having hot flashes, right? Like those
Mm-hmm.
things, those
Mm-hmm.
things will not make
Mm-hmm.
any sense. And they're going to have different reasons for eating different foods. So it's really, there's no like, you have to look at the person and go, okay, what is your age? Where are you in your life? What's happening for you hormonally? Are you, are you in what's your season like? I mean, you're in Florida. I'm assuming it's hot and humid right now. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
LA, though it's about 70 degrees right now. It's not too hot. But in a humid climate, you have to look at that first. You have to look at where they are in their life. Do they exercise at all? Are they, what is happening for them in the moment? So, I think one thing to consider is your season. What season are you in right now? I mean, especially right now, you and I are in like the end of summer, beginning of fall.
Mm-hmm.
In Australia, they're in a completely different season.
Mm-hmm.
In South America, they're in a completely different season.
Yes.
So we have to really look at the culture. What's the season? What's happening for you? Do you tend towards hot? Do you tend towards cold? Where are your imbalances? Are you
Mm-hmm.
overeating? Are you under? Because I know for myself, we talk a lot. I think a lot of holistic people talk a lot about overeating. But what
Mm-hmm.
about the undereaters who stress out
Yes.
and then they don't eat? I'm one of
Mm-hmm.
those people I had to really work on, okay, no, I need to eat. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's a cue for me. I go, "Oh God, I'm like I must be upset because I'm not eating. Why am I not
Mm-hmm.
eating today?"
Mm-hmm.
Um so, we got to look at the human. Like what is in front of you? Who is in front of you? Where do they live? Where are they from? What's going on? And I think then we can get not just holistic, but a whole person, whole human view of their body and what's happening and how do we make small baby steps to get them into balance on all levels as much as we can without
Mm-hmm.
stressing them out.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Leslie, now when you're talking about it this way, I'm starting to get a more better understanding about the holistic lifestyle. So it's really about you personally. So for the viewers, you can't take anxiety based on what somebody else's anxiety is. You
No.
have to find a holistic point of view of your own, really individual, right?
100%. I mean, especially like thinking about someone who is highly sensitive and empathic versus someone who is not. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to need different things, and the nurturing around it is going to be, how do you the nourishing, the nurturing, like they're going to need different things. Some
Mm-hmm.
might need more snuggles, some might need more space. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so we need to figure out this. Some might need to set more boundaries, some might need to say yes more. I mean, it really just depends. So yeah, it really depends on who you are and what's happening. I think we forget that our opinion and our feelings are unique and matter. And even though we are interconnected, and that's very important to recognize so we're not alone, there is space to be an individual and a unique self within that. And I feel like, even if you work with an expert or whoever, if they're trying to get you to be like them, you probably should run.
Mm-hmm.
Do not work with them. I would say if they're helping you be you and they're trying to
Mhm.
get you interdependent so you can actually function on your own without them,
Mhm.
then that's the person you need to work with because they're trying to get you to be yourself, which is you.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
you're not God, I have enough of myself. Like I don't need my right? I'm sure like for some of us we're like you don't need to be me. You need to be you. Like
Mhm.
let's get
Exactly,
you as we
because it's not
possibly can.
going to work for you. And plus, I was just that came to my mind as well. If you're gonna try to be like me, you're gonna have my problems as well, or what? You know.
That's so funny.
So
Yeah.
okay.
And we all have problems. That's the thing.
Uh-huh.
We all have problems. And if some we were talking about this before this talk that if someone tells you I have no problems, I'm fine, like
Hmm.
they're lying.
Yeah.
They're
I
lying to
think
you.
one thing in society we have to change as well, just saying this, at least, okay, maybe in a like business situation or something like this, you can say I'm fine. But if you do have like your personal friends and everything, and you have these issues, whatever issues, anxiety issues or things, don't just say I'm fine. If you're not fine, we have to learn people to be comfortable to saying I'm not fine.
And again, I would discern that. Is it okay if I add to that? I mean,
Yeah,
discern that because some people are not going to be okay with you not being fine. So I think it's okay to tell them you're fine if they can't receive you.
yeah.
Because I mean, have you ever been in a group or something and you're like, this does not feel right? And you're
Hmm.
trying really
Hmm.
hard to like make it work and people are asking you how you are and they really just want you to say I'm fine. Like
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
not the place maybe to be authentic, but to find the places where it's essential. I mean, if I could say anything, like it's essential to find a
Hmm.
place you feel safe and authentic because there's you will not be okay if you don't have a
Hmm.
place where you can be yourself and be authentic. I'm so grateful I have friends that I can be myself
Hmm.
with.
Yeah, that's what I was saying as well. That not exactly like you rephrase this as well. That not everywhere, but you have to, and you don't have, if you don't have that person at home or something like this, then
Yeah.
have the coach that they
Yeah.
can, you can tell the coach. Don't,
Exactly.
there's so many people they go and even like not just the coaches, but they go to a therapy and they tell their therapist, oh, I'm fine, you know. And a therapist or a coach can't help you when you tell them that you're fine.
You gotta make sure it's a good coach. I definitely have met the bad coaches and therapists who,
Mm-hmm.
I met someone in the last 2 years where they told me they would go to therapy, and instead of actually doing therapy, the therapist would be, like, talking to them about their life
Oh
or
wow.
talking
Yes.
to them about, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like they were paying them to not get the help they needed, but they really needed
Mm-hmm.
help." Like, they really needed
Mm-hmm.
help.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the therapist had set up this very toxic dynamic, and, but it's because they're in that role, I think it's the client needs to wake up and go, "Okay, like, I need someone who's really gonna help me, who's gonna push
Mm-hmm.
my edges kindly, who's gonna really do the work with me to move forward," because there's plenty of people who won't.
Mm-hmm. And for anxious people, it might be really difficult to call out and say
Oh, yeah.
that I'm not okay with this therapist, but they have to find a way because if you keep on going to that, like you were just mentioning, that therapist, if you keep on going, that will hurt you more.
Oh my God, yeah, and it's scary because I think, it's scary for the anxious person, especially if the person has already created this sort of safe space. So I'm gonna put that in quotes. I'll put quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's manipulative actually, if you think about it. They're
Yeah.
in a power role, and if they've not been taking care of you already and you've created a safe space, it almost turns into like a parental thing, right? You almost have to
Mm-hmm.
they become this sort of parental thing. And if you have toxic parents and don't recognize it, it can get very tricky. You just have to really pay attention, ask questions. And I know it's scary because you assume those people of power will be good and they're not always good, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And then you just have to change the therapist or coach. So
And
that's
research. Do some research.
mm-hmm.
It's similar to actually fitness trainers. I was talking to someone on Instagram recently, and she has a health issue. She doesn't work out. And then she posted this thing about she was going to join this thing to that it's healthy to do a plank for like learning to do it for 10 minutes or something. Like it was something ridiculous. And I wrote her a note and I said, listen, I'm really actually not trying to sell to you, even though like I teach yoga and Pilates, right, too. But I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, this isn't healthy. Like I'm actually worried for your health. Like I'm worried
Uh-huh.
this is not a good idea. But she went for it anyway. But she has like super intense health problems and injuries, and that's probably one of the worst things you can do is try to hold a plank for 10 minutes.
Oh wow. I can hold the plank for 10 minutes.
I work out 5 times a week. I would never do that. It just seems like a counterproductive. Especially when you're in your 60s. She's in her 60s. It's just a
Oh
really
wow.
bad idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I totally believe with the, everybody's watching it as well. If you feel that it's not working, whatever it is,
Yeah.
workout or a coach or a therapy, if you don't see the change, not that you have to see the change with the first, and some of the, I believe some of the changes you have to see right away, at least the feeling that it is right. But after a few sessions that you're feeling that you're not seeing any changes and you feel there's a feeling inside you that says that it's not right.
And
And a lot
question
of
it.
times we don't trust that feeling.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to do that, but also to check in with are you so there's two pieces to that, right? One is the is this not feeling right or am I triggered or am I not doing what I'm supposed to do for myself, right? There's a few things there. So it gets tricky. So we need to make sure that it's really not feeling right. Talk to the person first, talk to the trainer
Hmm.
and or the coach or the therapist, and then because sometimes we throw things out before we've had our breakthrough or we've oh this just doesn't work for me, right? Like
Hmm.
it's an anxious
Hmm.
response actually. Oh, this works for everyone else, it doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
I don't know, but you may not have done anything. Maybe I suggested a food and they ignored it, or they didn't do the practice I suggested, or whatever it is. Like what's happening, I would prefer someone talk to me about it
Hmm.
and versus like go to the next one first. Though
Hmm.
most people feel they hire me because they feel safe enough to tell me some things, right? Like they're not going to just hire me to.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's a
I
very
think
rare thing.
I think with the anxiety as well, one problem that anxious people have is to say the things that they actually mean, but that's gonna hurt them. So it's kind of like double-sided. They're holding back what the anxiety creates anxiety. They feel anxious about talking about it. But then again, if they don't talk about it, then they feel more anxiety as well. So how do they come in a
Well, I could talk for my clients because I'm pretty attuned. So when it's really also so there's a lot going on, right? But for
Mhm,
if a coach or a therapist or a somatic practitioner like myself is working with someone, we need to really know anxiety or something like that to work with someone
mhm,
because so I have a client who she's had like so many deaths the last few years. I mean, so many people have passed away in her like close family, just
mhm,
so many, like too many.
mhm,
And I saw that how she was handling it. So, there's a process with each person. So I'm listening to her and I'm talking to her and if she didn't have to talk about her grief or anxiety ever again, I think she would want to. But
mhm,
I gently bring up,
mhm,
hey, so I want you to notice that instead of, you know, feeling some of the grief that's coming up right now, you're putting all of this in X, right? Like this is happening. I would like
mhm.
to invite you at some point to come back to this grief. Are you okay with that? Does that feel safe? Does that okay for you to start to come back to it? And she, all my clients usually say yes. That's Yeah. And they don't realize it, right? Because the anxiety has taken over. So it is the practitioner needs to know and pay attention to what's going on, because we could easily and like, forget it. Let's just go. Like, let's just go. You're into work right now. Cool. Let's just talk about work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we talk about work a little bit, and then we need to come back to what's going on underneath the surface. We need to be aware of the depths of things. Like, it seems like work. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like work. It sounds like food. It sounds like X, but it's usually any trigger is usually past. Like any serious, unless it happened very recently, most triggers are old, like serious triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say really quick, like, let's say, Pray, that I said to you, you said to me something like, I don't know, I love Disney World over Disneyland or something, right? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just making this up since you're in Florida and I'm in LA, right? Like,
Okay.
oh, I love Disney World. It's so much better than Disneyland. And instead of me going, oh, interesting, I'm so curious. Why? Like, what is it about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a reactive response, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
reactivity is a trigger. Like, I'm triggered now. I need to look at why. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably has nothing to do with Disney at all. It probably has something to do from when I was like 5 or something, or younger even. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with the moment. And then we need to learn how to, well, we don't have to, but hopefully we learn how to manage the reactivity
Mm-hmm.
and that
So,
response.
so what would be your first advice for a person who with anxiety when the yeah, if somebody thinks that they having anxiety, that the anxious person, what would be the first thing to outreach, or what's the first step to do?
Make sure you're safe. Find a safe space quickly.
How do you do that? Like,
That's going to be for each person. Some people need to go home. Some people might have a place outdoors. Some people might need to be in the grass. People, it might be a phone call. Um, it might be their practitioner. Oh my God,
mhm,
I'm having an anxiety attack. I mean, I'm assuming you mean anxiety as an anxiety attack, not just like general anxiety. Or do you mean general? There's different levels of anxiety, right? There's also a
oh,
panic
I was
attack.
thinking the
Yeah.
general one, but let's get to the anxiety attack right now since you started talking about. Let's
Yeah, I
get
mean,
to that.
anxiety attack, with anxiety attack and panic attack, I would call you and make sure you help immediately. Like, panic attack is stronger because it feels like you're having a heart attack. Like, you actually feel
Hmm.
like you're dying,
Physical.
right? It's a very physical emotion. That is, you can't breathe. I would call your practitioner and make sure you have help quickly, because that is something you definitely need support with now. Um,
Hmm.
I was reading all these like fatty things on fad wise, like on Instagram. And I was like, please don't have them do that if they're having a panic attack. Like, it was just these sort of like, eat
Like
this,
what?
put yourself in cold water, go
Ooh,
reading, blah, blah. I mean, I was like, no, you're literally shaking.
wow.
Why don't you put yourself, I mean, like, if you feel like it's just too much, because you have to remember all of these things are energy and you're learning to ride the waves of this energy, but you probably need support now. So, you might need to put yourself in a chair and bundle up. If you're feeling too hot, you know what I mean? You might need to like just lay down and, okay, this is energy. One thing you could do with just general anxiety is be very curious about it. Okay, make sure you're in a safe space, but also be curious about it. Like, where do I feel this? Oh, it's probably in my solar plexus. Did my shoulders go up? Can I breathe? Okay, I'm not breathing. What just happened? What triggered me? Okay, I talked to this person today. Obviously, I'm getting some sort of thing from them. Like, why? What was this about? Like, what does this remind me of? Right? Be super curious about the anxiety if it's general. With an
Hmm.
anxiety attack, which is less than a panic attack, those things you need support. I wouldn't even give some like one size fits all thing for that. Go get support
Hmm.
now. Like, those things, because they're manageable. They're manageable.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be a life sentence. They're manageable. And I think
Hmm.
that's really important to recognize. People heal from anxiety. You
Yeah.
can get
Yes.
better,
Hmm.
but you need help. And I know that
Hmm.
might sound, whether it's with me or someone else, you need help.
Yeah. Hmm.
Get help.
You
Yeah.
need help and you need knowledge. when if it's not like severe, then at least get knowledge about it. The more you know about anxiety, the easier it will be to understand it, right?
Yes. Yes. And also what the trigger is. Why do I feel unsafe? What's making me uncomfortable? You know, what is it? Are you in the wrong relationship? Are you with friends you don't like? Are you in a job you don't like? Are you in, what's happening for you? What is going on? Do you live in the wrong city? What's happening? Like, what is causing
Causing
the
the
anxiety? Be curious,
Mhm.
ask yourself questions, like be curious, but also again, the safety of, for some people don't like animals. Some people with anxiety do really well with animals, like petting them is
Mhm.
really nice, right? Like you feel like a safety around them.
Mhm.
For some people, it's outdoors in the grass, like take your shoes off, go walk on the grass. Some people hate dirt, like that's not going to work.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
There's cabin people and then there's like 4-star hotel people, right? So it really just, you got to be honest with that. Like, but my coach said that I should go outside. Do you like the outside? No. Well, then don't do that. Like,
Yeah,
well, my coach
exactly.
said I should eat, I don't know. I should eat oh God, I'm so not into this. The intermittent fasting thing. Like that's all you hear
Mhm.
about right now, like intermittent fasting. And I'm not into it at all for various reasons. Well, then don't do like eat.
Mhm.
Like don't starve yourself to 1 in the afternoon. Like eat. It's okay.
Mhm.
Like you'll be okay.
Mhm.
There's for millions of years, people have been eating in the morning. It's okay. Like
Mhm.
you'll be fine.
Mhm. Yeah, I think then that's what I'm getting as well. Like for anxiety, is most important is know as much as possible about yourself
Yeah.
and your anxiety.
Self-inquisitive. Absolutely. Like question yourself, go into bed again. It needs to happen within the body itself. We need to heal anxiety within the body. It's not a mind thing. The mind cannot heal anxiety. Mindset stuff, affirmations are nice and stuff, but it's not going to heal the body. We need to go into the body in a safe, effective way. That's what I've learned over time.
Hmm. And you were saying you practice the
Somatic experiencing. That's one
somatic
of my practices.
experience.
Yeah,
So
part of my
what
practice.
is a somatic experience?
It's a very gentle way of creating in through the body of creating more nervous system regulation. So instead of feeling like, okay, let me see if I can get my hand here. Okay, so anxiety does like you feel like it's like this, right? It's like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we learn to how do we navigate this? So we learn to get a little more fluid with it. We heal it from the body. If there's trauma in the body, we heal it from the body perspective. It's very gentle. It's it's slow, but it's long term.
Hmm.
For my own practice and my own life, I found it more efficient for me and helpful than therapy. And it's a kinesthetic way of working through different stressors and anxiety and traumas. It's very deep.
Hmm. So for the viewers who don't know as well, is that like a movement or meditation or?
No, it's a expert led, we have different tools to work through different part of the nervous system stuff to get someone to have more capacity to handle their emotions and their experiences. So it's definitely different tools. It might have some meditation stuff, it might have some movement in it, but generally it's more about us, the practitioner, helping the person on a like holistic way, really non-medical way,
Hmm.
um, moving through it from a body perspective. So I've helped people work through anger stuff. I've helped people, all the uncomfortable emotions that are difficult and challenging.
Hmm.
It gives us a way of working through it through the body perspective and a nervous system perspective
Hmm.
versus a mind perspective, which would be a little more therapeutic. Like you'd go to therapy, you talk it out, right? Which is really important sometimes for some people. But with like me, we would go through the energetic of it. I would really focus on, especially in the beginning, someone's capacity to strengthen their capacity so that they can experience their body in a safer way. Because sometimes, just to be, sometimes the anxiety is actually coming from the body,
Hmm.
so it's actually not always safe to go into the body first
Oh.
because if the body's and like you were sexually abused or something, let's say that
Hmm.
happened or you were hurt in some way physically,
Hmm.
the body may not be safe right now. So we have to orient and learn how to be safe externally and then
Okay.
come back to the body. So it's really, it's a gentle way of becoming more present with
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in the body, but making sure that we're regulating and creating capacity versus like, you know, just
Mm-hmm.
talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little
Yeah.
talking, but not as much as like let's move through this. Let's create strength and capacity.
Mm-hmm. So it's a process as well. Well, we're
Absolutely.
getting closer to the end as well,
Yeah.
and soon. So before we're gonna do some close up questions and close up talk, tell us about your practice more. And I have all that for the viewers. All the links are in descriptions. But Leslie's gonna tell us more about what she does. So if you feel like you want to contact with her, definitely do, because anxiety is easier when you have somebody helping you.
Yeah, I with anxiety, and it's okay. So I have two. I work privately with people with somatic work. I do to help with the
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and usually in 50-minute sessions, unless it depends on what's happening for them. I will talk to them about it and figure out if there's a way of working that makes sense. I also have a 3-month private and group. Actually, I do a private and group coaching program that helps with that's the self-tailored holistic practices. The private, we do more somatic work, but the group, we do less of that and more of let's tailor these breath work practices and meditations and food stuff so that you are doing this a little more. It's a little more, it's supportive, but it's less private, right? So it's a more like supportive group atmosphere to work through those things. And usually my private coaching program gets people off sleeping pills and anti-anxiety if they don't have mental illnesses within a month. They actually have stopped
Mm-hmm.
needing it within a month.
Mm-hmm.
And we really dive deep into the foods and whatnot. One thing I will say is I had a physical therapist do a Pilates session with me recently, and she does have some anxiety and an autoimmune issue. And she
Mm-hmm.
said after the Pilates session, her anxiety was gone, her pain was gone, and she slept perfectly well. And we only worked 50 minutes together. And so, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for a physical therapist, she did have more connection to her body, right? She's a
Mm-hmm.
PT,
Mm-hmm.
but it was cool to hear that Pilates did that. So I do offer Pilates sessions as well. If you aren't moving effectively and efficiently and need to find some more connection to your body, it's a great way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Because I believe as well, I like how you pointed out that your customers, they get results within a month. Because I always like worry of those people, especially therapists. Well, there's really good therapists,
There
but if
are.
the therapist trying to just get you to stay there forever and not have a goal, when okay, you're gonna be better and you're gonna be off after we work with you for this time, then I think it's more about you paying them hourly than actually.
I've actually
I'm
had that
being
experience.
I'm being really honest. That's about just having you as a hourly paying customer instead of trying to help you. Being really honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, it just, it really, again, if the person does nothing, they're not going to have any results at all, right? Like they have
Mm-hmm.
to do something. But the ones I found, I'm doing a 12-week thing. And sometimes I wonder, should I do 10 weeks? Because everyone's like, they're much better by 8 weeks, 10
Mm-hmm.
weeks. That I'm like, but the extra 2 weeks just seems because they understand what to do now. They get
Yes.
what they need to do when they feel like,
Mm-hmm.
crazy. But I actually had that experience with a therapist. I remember I was with him for so many years and I looked at him and I'm like, is this going to end?
Mm-hmm.
Do we end this at some point or is this going to continue? He's like,
No.
and it was a very manipulative conversation and it took a lot for me to ask him this because I trusted him and I respected him, but it felt like he wanted me to be there the next 10 years or something and I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
be.
And I think that's actually, maybe it's an old way of them doing it, but that's actually what they do want. They want you to be there as many years as possible because that's their income, you know.
Yeah, I think you need to also have different way. I mean, I have different subscriptions that make sense for people's income. And
Mm-hmm.
so some things they can just pay and do without me.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a little less than, working with me privately, but at least they have access to it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just,
Yeah.
I think you have to, sometimes that's the only option someone has.
Mm-hmm. But I believe like you were having like you have those courses and there's people that they do this and then they will get better, and if there's something happens something and they need help again, then they come again and then they have new
Totally.
customers. You know, there's
Yeah,
always new customers who need help and everything like this.
of
So
course, of course. But I think one thing we have to make sure of, is we're not just reading books and Googling for research. We're going to the experts. I think sometimes there's so many experts right now online. And I think for a while I wasn't even posting because I was like, where's my voice in this? Does it even matter? Like, do I
mm-hmm,
even have any, I mean, even though I have something to say, I'm like in the wave of coaches that seem to, like trauma expert, this expert, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, is this even worth it? But it is,
it
even for
is.
like that one person who they can hear me and
Mm-hmm,
say, whatever. I mean, I am an introvert, so it does take a lot of energy for me to even come onto a podcast, but um it's worth it because I want to make sure people are taken care of.
mm-hmm,
And not some of those coaches actually have no idea what they're doing. Zero. They can
mm-hmm,
actually cause more damage, believe it or not. They can actually cause more anxiety and cause more trauma and cause, like you just said, a therapist keeping you for like 10 years or
mm-hmm,
something. That can cause more problems.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very much true.
Yeah.
Okay, before our hour is gonna end as well, but before we're gonna end, I ask all my questions because of the happiness as well. And even if you're dealing with anxiety, that also actually I was just thinking right now, even if you're dealing with anxiety, you still have happy moments in your life. You can still be happy and have anxiety at the same time. You know,
Yes.
one doesn't exclude another one.
Well,
So
also excitement and anxiety look the same.
yes, very much, very much.
They
A
look
lot of
exactly
people.
the same. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like you're on a roller coaster, right? You're like, wee. I mean, it looks the same.
And feels the same in the
It
body
feels
as
the
well. Sometimes
same.
when you extreme, and that's why a lot of people get scared of happy, extreme happiness as well, because it feels so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like the moments when you're like actually something really, really good that you wanted to happens, and you feel like dancing and singing all this. So suddenly you have this burst of emotions. So it's the same way with anxiety. You have this burst of emotions.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I was just thinking, dancing and shaking things out, if you can manage it, if it doesn't feel threatening, is a great thing to do because it's
Mhm,
in the body. You're shaking it out. You're just letting your body move. I
mhm,
think sometimes we need to learn about the body's messages. It's a body message. So
mhm,
it's not, that's why I was saying the mind doesn't, it's not going to heal it. It's a body message. But if you can like find a good song, put it on and shake it out, I think that could be
mhm.
also helpful.
Leslie, actually, like I actually do these things that's called dance walks,
Oh,
and
fun.
I'm trying to normalize it. So go and try it because first sessions that I did with my friend was okay, but I did have like slight anxiety. I went over that anxiety. I've done sessions all by myself. When I go alone for a dance walk and I go and I do that walk all by myself, dancing and walking.
I
But
love it.
I just remember that first time that I did it myself, I had anxiety. You know, I had anxiety. Or are people gonna think I'm crazy person dancing here on the street? You know, all these things, and that's what I'm trying to normalize it, so people will actually now then go and see somebody walking and doing some dance moves.
I love it.
Then they think it's okay, you know, because okay, it's just
So
just
cute.
dance walking, you know.
Well, because we're so disconnected from our body. So, or if
Hmm.
someone's in chronic pain, that's its own thing. But you know what I mean? We're so disconnected from our bodies. But if you see someone enjoy, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's great. I mean, spread it. That's fabulous. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I have other people, other walkers are passing us, and they say like, "You're having much more fun than we are doing. We
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you
you are.
yeah, we're just walking, and you seem to have too much fun."
I love it.
So
I love
that's
it.
cool.
But also, there was funny, there was a woman that was crying. I didn't know her. And I went up to her and I said, "Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need anything? Are you okay?" And she was so grateful that I did that. She's like, "No, I'm good, but thank you." And I think that's another thing though. If you're anxious, right, and you have capacity to handle it, you're probably going to step a foot forward to someone and say, "Hey, are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
But if you're uncomfortable with your emotions and someone is crying in front of you or they're angry in front of you, you're not going to have capacity to handle it. So that's when you probably also need an expert, because those are things you can actually work through, because we really all need to be able to handle this human experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great conversation. Before we're gonna end, I ask all my guests those few questions because of the happiness still. So, for you, Leslie, not what other people think what happiness is, but what do you think happiness is for you? Not for others, but for you, what is happiness?
When I feel attuned to my body and my life, and I feel like I'm in a flow, it's more of a sense of contentment. Like it's not too up and it's not too down. It's this place in the middle where I feel like, yeah, okay, I'm in the right
Mm-hmm.
place. Like this feels good. I'm breathing okay. Like my stomach feels okay. I feel centered. I'm in my flow. I'm in the right place. It's a sense of
Mm-hmm.
contentment. It feels like I'm present with myself. I feel connected to myself and I feel like I can connect with others. And I feel very present. I love that sense of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's happiness to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Same way with anxiety, it's really individualistic. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to bring out for people as well. Happiness is really individualistic as well.
Yeah.
Something that makes somebody else happy is not going to make the doesn't have to make you happy.
No,
So
no.
name maybe few, maybe up to three or so things or activities, something really specific that makes you feel good or happy. Just like
From
that
when I was
moment.
3 years old?
No, no, no. Like three items, three things or
Oh, three
activities.
things. I thought you were saying 3 years old. I was like, oh,
No, no,
okay.
no. Three things.
Three
So
items that make me happy. Three items.
something simple. Yeah, really simply.
My authentic friendships and
Mm-hmm.
relationships. Um, Hiking,
Mm-hmm.
travel.
Perfect. You know, you have to know what makes you happy. That's why I'm asking those two questions from people, the guests. So you have to know what makes people have to know what makes them happy so they
Yeah.
can create more of it in their life.
Yeah, we call that
And
resourcing in somatic work. How do you resource yourself?
mm-hmm,
I love it.
great. It was perfect. Thank you. Thank you. It's such a good conversation,
Totally.
Leslie.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
And thank you, everybody who are watching. And I have to say that I want to say this again. Just because you're anxious doesn't mean that you can't be also happy, and you can have both of them. You know, it's okay to be anxious, it's okay to be happy. Both feelings are have the reason in our life, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank
Thank
you,
you for
everybody,
having
for
me.
watching. Bye.
Bye.